the cloister bell has been sounded and the hostile action displacement system, the HAD system, has gone into overdrive and the TARDIS has fucked off because we have got some crazy news to get into. So we've decided to call this emergency podcast because news has broken today from apparently all of the major UK newspapers that Doctor Who is in serious trouble. Well, so early today, I just happened to Google the words Doctor Who, and then I went on the news tab, and then I saw that, well, let's just read one of these articles out. So this comes from The Sun. So The Sun apparently broke this story. So, we have to take that with a bit of pinch of salt, but Doctor Who
Truck of
faced
salt.
a truck of salt,
A gritting machine. A
a
gritting
TARDIS full of salt. It says, exterminate, original. Doctor
Clever.
Who facing axe as lead star Ncuti Gatwa quits amid woeful rating and fans' fury at woke storylines. And then if you take a look at some of the other articles, or just pull some of them up, I'll put them on the screen as well. Let me just read some of these headlines. This is the Times. Doctor Who's future is in doubt as Ncuti Gatwa heads for exit. That was 37 minutes ago. Pink News say BBC rejects the report that Doctor Who and Ncuti Gatwa are being axed over woke storylines. The Independent say that Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who future is uncertain as the actor is on the verge of quitting. And then there was one from GB News. Oh no, this is the Daily Mail. The woke storylines that have left once popular Doctor Who on the verge of being cancelled. So something has obviously happened. The Sun broke it, but then it looks like loads of other journalists have sort of jumped on it, which does seem to suggest that there is something worth reporting on, because usually you'd think that more credible publications would avoid reporting on it. But if you've got, I'm not sure how much, the Radio Times have come out and said Doctor Who has not been shelved. BBC responds to rumours. So the Radio Times are commenting on it. I'd consider them to be more legitimate than the Sun. So I don't know. But
100,000%.
100,000%. But obviously lots of people are talking about it. So something has happened. You've been doing a bit of research on it, haven't you, Dan? Do you?
Yes.
Go on, lead us in.
Yes. Well, the belief is, according to the that Ncuti has been offered a lot of opportunities in Hollywood, and he's having to bat them away, essentially, in order to keep Doctor Who at the forefront of his career. Doctor Who has been in a bit of limbo. We're no strangers to the limbo situation ever since the series ended last year. There seems to be just a whole load of nothing going on. There's been no actual release date evident by the BBC about the new series, though we've heard it from one of the writers, supposedly, that the series is going to kick off around April time. There is an annual event where the BBC tends to put forward and show off the next 12 months worth of television. There was no mention there whatsoever of Doctor Who. Disney have been in the background noise, kind of semi-vocal about their feelings towards the show and the fact that it maybe hasn't pulled in as many viewing figures as they would have hoped. But the common belief is that the final decision on the series will be made after the end of Series 2, depending on viewing figures and audience reception. But a lot of the kickback has come from, again, Ncuti Gatwa's casting as the Doctor, a lot of the brackets woke storylines, which are apparently very new to Doctor Who as an entity, which is absolute nonsense. And this general feeling that the crew are very unhappy with the current situation, that they've been left out of the loop for a very long time. We've only heard not too long ago that Bad Wolf Productions and their studio space has been put up for, not for sale, but for kind of like a rental use. So they weren't using that as much as originally planned. It seems to be very all over the place, Mike. And it seems like you said, there's got to be some element of truth behind it, especially when you consider that they are, 9 months after filming is wrapped on Series 2 officially, there are reshoots taking place. There are some rumours that regeneration scenes have been filmed. The rumour, and I can't stress rumour enough, is that if Ncuti was to leave, or indeed the Beeb were to turn around and sort of axe the show, it leaves it open-ended, so it can pick up again at some point in the future. It's coming from various different sources. What are your thoughts so far?
Doctor Who filming locations put on Twitter that reshoots were happening, and the rumour was that the reshoots were happening to the finale of Series 2, which is due to air very soon. So that's where it's all came about. So to theorize, I'd say reshoots were happening. Reshoots were happening probably on the finale. They were doing something with the end of the finale, and that leaves one or two things. A regeneration scene, I guess, a surprise regeneration scene, if we to believe what we hear about Shooty Gatwa not wanting to stick around. Or they, and this is the more positive spin, behind the scenes, they've heard, they've received news that there's going to be a Christmas special this year, and it leads into the Christmas special somehow. It could be a number of things. People don't know. But what I imagine has happened, and I can't stress this enough, got no inside knowledge, is this filming came together, and then someone from the crew has leaked to the press about something to do with the filming, and then the press have run with it. I don't believe it, but, let's say it is Shooty Gatwa filming a surprise regeneration scheme scene. Someone from the crew has leaked that to the press, and then the press have gone overboard with the reasons why, essentially. And, publications like the Daily Mail or Sun or GB News, since I've been a fan of Doctor Who, have been whinging about woke storytelling on Doctor Who since, in day dot, early sign. So they've taken this idea that Shooty Gatwa might be needed. Let's say that we know that the future of Doctor Who has been a bit of limbo. He's a very in-demand actor. He might not want to stick around as long as they need him to stick around for. Maybe he has decided to leave. But the idea that it's due to plummeting ratings and woke storytelling and all of that nonsense is pure media bullshit, isn't it? Think about that 2005 series. If you're going to hire Russell T Davies, you know what you're in for. It's not being cancelled because of woke storytelling. Absolute nonsense. But a morsel of truth, maybe Shooty Gatwa is on his way out because of the timelines around filming, because of the timelines around keeping him around. Yeah, maybe that's true.
And that's a really important thing to note as well, because Doctor Who, ever since it came back in 2005, has been a bit like a well-oiled machine, hasn't it? It's been that kind of constant, finish a series, bit of a gap promo, straight into them for the next one, bit of promo, break. It's been very consistent for the last 20 odd years. This is probably the biggest gap they've ever had in terms of filming. I mean, we've had a spin-off series as yet to where they filmed in the gap between the two of them being released. And again, playing devil's advocate here, we know for a fact that both seasons 1 and 2 were filmed back to back, which is very unique for Doctor Who. Could this be a way of spinning on its head, almost kind of throwing out negative press because any press is good press, and that'll then kind of spike viewing figures up in an attempt to get people watching because they don't know kind of how off the rails it may have gone? Let's be honest, that kind of shit rag of a newspaper, I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm allowed to say that, they are very good at kind of spreading certain or taking maybe like a little bit of truth and blowing it up into something that is far beyond what it actually is. There could be some elements of nonsense that's just can kind of spread from there. But like you said, it's a massive gap. And maybe these reshoots, you don't know. Shooty Gatwa's just finished a play. He's just finished a West End run. So his calendar might have been all over the place. So the only time to film the last bit would have been either at the very start of a Christmas special filming. That's kind of how they're going to segue into that. Or it's to kind of keep us as a public on our toes because then we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, if you think back to Jodie Whittaker, her Doctor ended, we're expecting Shooty, David Tennant turned up out of nowhere. It could be a similar, I mean, if David Tennant actually did turn up, we'd be going, oh, shit me, like they've hit the emergency glass and pulled him out for a third time. But you don't know what's happened. I mean, there's been this kind of belief that Disney have funded a lot of money towards Doctor Who. You've seen it in the last season. You've seen it in the Christmas specials. That it looks fantastic. It's probably the most epic looking Doctor Who it's ever been. Do we think that there may have been a bit of additional creative control? And I only say that because there's been 2 previous instances where American networks have had some kind of artistic license behind Doctor Who, and it's kind of fallen flat on its face. I mean, you think of the Doctor Who film back in the 90s, Fox tried to take some control of that, 20th Century Fox, and it kind of fell a bit short of what it should have been. Then in the, I want to say, was it the noughties or the 10s with Torchwood?
They would have been the 10s. Yeah.
It's
Miracle Day.
yeah. Miracle Day. So the Stars Network co-funded that. If you've seen it, you know exactly what we're talking about, where it felt incredibly Americanized. They got the show a full 6 days before we did. There were certain scenes as well that were cut out from us, so they got the fuller episodes. but that didn't land quite as well because it was almost reintroducing an existing IP and existing characters to a brand new audience that wasn't maybe very familiar with them. We already know with Doctor Who, ever since it came back, it's been kind of reconsidered as season 1. It's been fully rebooted. So do you think, Mike, that there might have been some, I don't know, maybe some disappointment that maybe it's not landed quite as well as they thought it would have done?
Maybe what I've read, the official word has always been from the crew behind Doctor Who, that series 3, the next batch, the next order of Doctor Who was never going to be until after series 2. If I were a betting man, I think the plan maybe have changed. If Doctor Who would have dropped and it became like this new era of Doctor Who and it became an instant worldwide phenomenon, like something like Stranger Things comes out, I think either party would have waited this long for the renewal to happen. So if that's true, if the idea was that it would always be renewed after series 2 came out, then I do have a bit of a hard time believing that. I think plans must have changed. So in my head, I think maybe that was the original plan, but maybe that's because they didn't expect it to perform that well, maybe. I don't know. Russell T Davies has come out and said that it's performing really well with young viewers, but he came out openly and said that ratings haven't been where he would have liked them to be. What it has opened up is this huge, what you were talking about before, this, and we talked a lot on this podcast. Now, we're probably not going to see Doctor Who on our screens for ages. Next year, we'll get the War Between the Land and the Sea. That is quite a long amount of time to go without it. And Ncuti Gatwa specifically is in this really unique position for Doctor Who actors where his role as Doctor Who seems to have come about at the same time. It's this worldwide recognition and phenomenon. Like Barbie came out, he performed at the Oscars for Barbie, all of this stuff. Like people really, his brand, is huge. Like people really know him now. And I do wonder if the idea that Doctor Who wasn't going to be returning for a certain amount of time, quite a long period of time, was, say that he did want to kind of move on with it. So maybe that's the case. Maybe they did. And also, maybe this was always the plan. Maybe these reshoots have nothing to do with Ncuti Gatwa, and actually there's a regeneration at the end of series 2, and that was always going to be the plan. And they've got the whole new Doctor lined up. Lou, I really liked your point that maybe it is a press marketing thing. It very well could be a press marketing thing. If you notice, Ncuti Gatwa hasn't commented on it. Russell T Davies hasn't commented on it. No one from Doctor Who. The BBC have put out a statement, but maybe that's all part of the plan. Who knows? But listen to this tripe. Listen to this absolute tripe from the Sun. Ncuti doesn't want to be tied to the series beyond this and plans to relocate to Los Angeles with several Hollywood projects standing by for him. His team also see a lot of backlash from the series and don't want the perception of him still being the Doctor to get in the way of any future work. That is just right. The Sun paints people out like they're like cartoon characters that have very one-dimensional ways of thinking, like Ncuti team that paints this picture of like a gaggle of faceless suits behind Ncuti, like using Ncuti as like their marketing thing, being like, he doesn't want to be tied. He wants to move to Los Angeles and do all those big Hollywood projects. Like, yes, hey, great. Remember, The Sun last year, the last big Doctor Who scandal, was they ran that story about Millie Gibson apparently being a drama queen because of all the night shoots she had to do. Do you remember that?
Remembered.
Nothing came of that, did it? Like there was, none of that. And then they ran that she'd been axed at the end of the series. And then you watch the end of series 1 and you realize that it was all part of the plan anyway. So you're like, it's just absolute tripe. So what I think we've got here is we've got a sensationalized story that probably has a degree of truth in it, as in the lead wants to move on or something.
And the thing is as well, I mean, because you made a really good point earlier today, was that Ncuti Gatwa is in a unique position with Doctor Who where he has come into the role being a very well-known actor. Sex Education was absolutely huge. Season 3 finished before, was it season 4? Sorry, season 3.
I didn't watch Sex Education. I think there were 4 series there.
It's 4. Yeah. So he's come off the back of season 4, very, very well received, fantastic actor, and then come into Doctor Who. Like you said, Barbie, a lot of these other roles, the West End, the sky's the limit for him. And what makes him unique as a Doctor is that previous incarnations of the Doctor have been sort of maybe lesser known or more UK specific known actors. I mean, you think back to Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith was a huge unknown at the time. Peter Capaldi, Jodie Whittaker. These are all probably UK home-based talent, and then they've kind of exploded as a result of that. Doctor Who's kind of been almost like a leaping pad into megastardom for them. Ncuti Gatwa's coming at this from almost a slightly reverse angle, where he's already quite renowned and he's getting these opportunities through. So from his perspective, he's only 32. He's in the prime of his career. If there are bigger opportunities, I absolutely wouldn't blame him for potentially going elsewhere. There's been a massive gap between filming, potentially even longer one if season 3 hasn't even been greenlit yet. However, I'm thinking there's an ounce of truth within the bullshit, because when he was on the Graham Norton show, apparently he mentioned that he was signed up and he was going to do season 3. Now, I've been to 2 take-ins to the Graham Norton show in the past, and there is a lot of stuff that they cut out of that show that you don't see on the final broadcast. But mysteriously, that mention of season 3 was removed from the final broadcast, but a lot of people in the audience have said it came from his mouth. Because that's the other thing as well with the show. It's a juggernaut of a show itself, and I think what's kind of made that show incredibly successful over the years is that it is quintessentially British. It's British sci-fi, fantastic actors, brilliant storytelling, and that's what's kind of made it very unique and kind of made it a firm fan sci-fi favorite around the world, because of the fact it's very British. And you look at the rest of the world and streaming platforms these days, British shows sell incredibly well. So I think there's been this kind of Americanization of it, or attempt to kind of make it a bit more open, with it being a new series and a reboot, that's maybe not kind of hit or struck a chord with audiences and maybe was intended. I think that's where the difficulty lies. And I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think if there wasn't any pressure on season 2 before, there absolutely is now. And it's going to be interesting to see how audiences, how Disney Plus, how it kind of accepts itself on an international scale. Because I think that was the plan all along, to make this a global thing.
Which takes time. Which takes time.
Of course it takes time. And you think of like the big BBC exports over the years, and the only other one that springs to mind is Top Gear. But what people don't realise is that was kind of nestled away for 7 or 8 series on BBC Two before Hammond's crash, and then it became more notable and they started selling it abroad. But it had time to mature. It had time to get to the level where it needed to. Doctor Who, in part, maybe has the excuse of it being new because it's a reboot, but then it's also been around since 2005. So it's kind of had that steady stream and flow of actors and stories and stuff like that. But one thing that probably hasn't helped, at least on the viewership front, is the fact that last series was the first time it premiered an iPlayer when it was broadcast. So a lot of the viewing figures might have been stunted by the fact that people could watch it, 16, 17 hours before it's going to be broadcast on BBC One, which almost certainly meant it didn't help.
We also don't know what the global worldwide figures were, because Disney Plus, like most streaming services, don't release their figures like that. So we know the UK specific one. And the UK, there's been an expected dip. There's been a dip for everything. But we don't actually know the Disney figures. That's why Rusty Davis came out and said that it performed exceptionally well with young people, because that apparently was the target demographic anyway. What I'd say is some final thoughts, right? If anyone's watching this, ignore The Sun and ignore GB News and ignore all of these right-wing UK newspapers, because what they do, and they've been doing this with Doctor Who for years, is they take stories, anything to do with Doctor Who, they superimpose the words woke and nonsense onto it, and then they run with it. And there might be an element of truth, but it's an element of truth. It's very small, and then it's all comments on top of that. It's all their own sting on top of that. Who knows what's happened with the production schedule of Doctor Who? Maybe, and this is just a thought, maybe it was always supposed to be like this. And maybe Disney and the BBC partnered up for this batch. They were going to wait till the end of series 2 before they made a decision. And that's why they've got the wall between the land and the sea, bridging that gap. Doctor Who is a mega brand, really. It does a hell of a lot of money for BBC worldwide as well, the commercial arm of the BBC. And the real powerhouse behind Doctor Who now isn't Disney, it's Bad Wolf Studios, an incredibly successful studio based in Cardiff, obviously named after Doctor Who. And they have an partnered up with Russell T Davis and acquired the rights to Doctor Who to just drop it as soon as things get hard. So if Disney decides to pull out because it isn't working for them, I'm sure there will be other deals that can be made. And maybe it was all part of the plan. Maybe it wasn't part of the plan, but they always kind of have this as kind of like a plan B. So I wouldn't be too worried about the future of Doctor Who. I think Ncuti Gatwa, maybe possibly because of the delay, maybe he's on his way out. Maybe they'll introduce someone new. And that's Doctor Who. That's what Doctor Who's always done.
And also, and I've just had a thought in my head, I don't know how you feel about this, because I've seen a few people mention this on social media, and I'm thinking, actually, because they've kind of played a bit differently to the normal rule book of Doctor Who, could there be, question mark, we've got the 2 seasons, regeneration, whatever, then the Warped Land the Sea. There's one thing that we haven't tapped into yet ever since they announced it, and that's the Whoniverse. We've not seen any expansion on that yet whatsoever, apart from this aforementioned series. What's there to say, because we've seen it before with David Tennant, that we get a series or specials where we get regenerations of old Doctors that come back, maybe one-off, an odd special. And I'm just thinking it could play completely against what we've already seen. It's completely unique. It takes some of the pressure off Ncuti if he's got to do work elsewhere, so it breaks it up for him a bit. And we have more of a spin-off entity, because we've seen already in the last couple of series or last couple of episodes that is entirely possible in this era of Doctor Who.
And there's precedent with this new era of Doctor Who as well. Like we say in The Sun last year, they ran with this story that Millie Gibson had been axed from the show. And then you get to the end, you realise that she hasn't been axed. It's all part of the plan. There's a new companion coming in, and Millie Gibson's going to be in the next series anyway, in a handful of episodes. Always part of the plan. Maybe it's always part of the plan. And one of our pet theories about the war between the land and the sea is it probably will feature the Doctor at some point, but just maybe not the Doctor that you're expecting. Maybe it's a big surprise, returning. Maybe what they decided to film, the reshoot at the end of series 2 that recently happened that kickstarted this whole debacle, was Ncuti Gatwa regenerates back into David Tennant again.
He could. With the emergency glass. Yeah. What we're trying to say, viewers, is this. Do not believe The Sun. Do not necessarily believe social media. But yes, Doctor Who might not be for you. There are eras of Who where I think we can all agree might not be our cup of tea. They might take a slightly different route, different angle. It might not be what our preference is. But whatever happens, that show will end or change or adapt in a way that it best sees fit. So there's no point jumping on the hearsay whack, and there's no point getting shrouded with all these social media comments. All we can do now is wait and see, because like you said, there's no way that Bad Wolf or Russell T Davis would have bought the rights to Doctor Who from the Beeb and dropped them the minute something went wrong. There's a bigger plan for this, probably more than we're being let on to believe. And stuff like the shit rag that is The Sun is probably pushing an agenda that is far removed from the reality of the situation. So all we can do is just take a step back, breathe. We've still got series 2. That's in the can. Series 2 might be absolutely amazing, but we don't know yet. We're going to get answers. We'll find out who Mrs. Flood is amongst a whole load of other things. We're going to see what happens very, very soon. And if these rumours are to be believed that April is going to be when the series starts, I can only imagine they're either keeping hold of it and it's going to be a big surprise, like, hey, it's going to happen, or it's going to be sprung up in a very unique way. It's Who. It's never played by the rules, Who. It's always been willing to change and adapt, and conformity is not what Who is all about. So there is a strong chance that we're going to get surprised or taken aback by an announcement or something else. It could be just smoke and mirrors at this point.
What a lovely ending, Dan. On that note, thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this, please do subscribe. We talk about Doctor Who all the time on this podcast. There's all we talk about on this podcast. Unless Doctor Who gets cancelled, and then we will never see us again.